Welcome everyone. This is Desi Vijay. I'm a North-South National Team member and a coordinator for the webinars. I'm glad to see you all here today. I hope that you're all doing great. We have already or we are opening up registrations for the next regional contests. And just like we did last year, we are planning to bring in a few of our past winners, various subject matters, to talk to their younger peers about their experience and provide more tips and encourage them to register for the contest. We call this Meet the Pro type webinar, and we had one couple of weeks ago on spelling, and then we are bringing in another interesting subject today, computer science. Thank you for all your support. We have a couple of pros and a subject coordinator here eager to talk to you about the subject and the contest and their thoughts, their experience and everything, and answer your questions. So without further ado, let me start the show. If you want to listen to any of our previous webinars, now we have an option to view them on YouTube. Please subscribe to North-South YouTube channel and watch and enjoy our past webinars. It's really my pleasure to introduce our computer science subject coordinator, Dr. Sanjeev Trikar. Sanjeev is the force behind starting this computer science contest at North-South Foundations. He holds a PhD from Purdue University and in electrical and computer engineering, and he works for Google. He has more than 80 patents in the subject, and he is the one who is going to pitch in for this contest for you. Sanjeev?
Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sanjeev. Just a quick background information about myself. I was at Intel for about 20 years in the Portland area. I've been volunteering for North-South for about 8+ years now. Just recently, I moved to California, and I now work for Google. I love my job, and guess what? It's based pretty heavily on computer science, computer engineering. So I'm glad to be here to share with you guys a little bit about our contest. And I'm joined here by two pros who have done extremely well in our past contests, and they'll be sharing as well. I'll let them introduce themselves. And Desi, you might want to go back to the slides. We're still showing quick poll.
Is this good?
Not yet. I'm still seeing the quick poll.
Oh, is it? You guys are seeing anything?
And we're getting questions also saying the same.
Still poll.
Okay. So let me see. Do you see now why computer science?
No, we don't. We still see your quick poll.
Oh, so sorry. Maybe it got turned off.
Your quick poll results.
Oh, okay. Poll results are the ones problem. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me go back to the previous one.
Yeah, let's go back to the hello slide for a minute. Slide number 2. One more up, or 2 more up. Sorry, one more.
Okay.
Yes, I'm joined here with Satvik and Chinmay. Satvik, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, so I'm Satvik Sullivan. I'm currently a freshman at UC Berkeley, and I'm currently pursuing a bachelor in electrical engineering and computer science.
Great, thank you, Satvik. Chinmay?
Hi, I'm Chinmay. I'm a junior at Cumberland Valley High School near Harrisburg, PA. I don't have any patents yet, but I got 3rd place at the National Comp Sci B, and I want to study cybersecurity in college. I've done NSF competitions since 1st grade, maybe. So I remember when I was younger, I want NSF to do a Comp Sci B, and I'm grateful that they made that happen. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. All right, let's go to the next slide. And Chinmay, you will get plenty of patents. I fully expect that. And if you ever need any help, let me know. Okay, so let's kick off with a little bit of introduction to what North-South Foundation is. For those of you who might be new to it, it is a nonprofit organization that started about 25 years ago. So there's quite a bit of history. We have prepared a ton of material. There's in multiple subjects, right? There are about 10 subjects being offered, both in terms of prep clubs, coaching sessions, contests. And the way the nonprofit works is by holding all of these educational activities here in the US, we generate a little bit of funds that we can then use to fund scholarships in India and also help some of the underprivileged students here in the US. It's all volunteer driven. All of the funds that we generate go straight to help the educational causes we just talked about. Okay, computer science is a new contest for North-South Foundation. It's been about 2 to 3 years old. I mean, the first time we piloted was as part of finals a couple of years ago. And why did we do that, right? So we did this because we realized that, hey, it is pretty foundational subjects for pretty much anything that goes on in our society today, right? So no matter whether you look at politics or you look at finance, you look at all the technology things, mining, space exploration, no matter what you do, computer science is a part of that, and it serves to accelerate the advancements in all of these fields. The fact that we are even able to talk to each other right now is really thanks to computer engineering and computer science. It is really important for us to advance this technology by becoming proficient in it over time. Another reason we decided to offer computer science is it is being offered to many students as part of AP courses and IB courses in high school, and we decided, hey, it would be helpful to our students here to both prepare them for these contests, for these tests, as well as help them showcase their skills in our contests. It prepares you for different internships and jobs with the knowledge. You can highlight this. The fact that even you participated or excelled in these contests in your resumes or college applications, it'd be really good for you guys to pay that forward as well as you go. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, please. Okay, so who can participate in it? The contest is open to all high school students, and the way that is defined is grades 9 to 12 as of January 1st of this year. Right, so if you are at that level, if you're 9th grade and above right now, you can participate. The regionals are happening in person this year. In previous years, it was online. It's happening in person, and we'll talk a little bit more about exactly when and where in a couple of minutes. But the contest eligibility requirements are pretty broad, right? So if you're basically high school students, you can participate. The contest format, it is a 45-minute contest when you start the contest. Okay, there's a single phase. It's some contests that North-South offers are conducted in multiple phases. Computer science is a single phase. You get 30 multiple choice questions to answer. When you're done with those 30 questions, you are basically done, right? Oh, we should remove that all online. Sorry, that's my error. It's not online this year, it is in person. The questions are offered in both Java and Python. Some of the questions will have code snippets, right? So we will put side by side the Java and Python code snippets, and you can choose which one you want to look at, or you can look at both. You don't need to know both languages, but you will need to know at least one of those two to be able to answer, I would say, majority of the questions. If you want to know what the syllabus is, there's a link right there. It's basically accessible directly off of northsouth.org, and you go under the regional contests, and it opens up a tab with multiple sub-tabs. One of them talks about how you prepare. Okay. All right, next slide, please. Okay, well, hang on, let me make it a little bit bigger on my end. It's kind of small. Yeah, so this information here that you're seeing is actually directly off of the website. The syllabus largely follows what's the AP computer science syllabus, with the change that we don't just offer the questions in Java, we also offer them in Python, right? So you can pick either one again. You will need to know programming, right? So you will need to know how variables work of all types, whether that's integers or strings, characters, booleans. You will need to know arrays, 1D and 2D array. You will need to know how to operate on them. How do if then else statements work, or switch case statements work? How do loops work? That's an important part of programming. You will need to know methods and functions, depending on whether you're dealing with classes or straight procedural programming. You will need to know, when we talk about functions, you will need to understand how recursion works, which is a function calling itself. So how does that play out? Object-oriented programming is part of this. So you will see some questions on class hierarchies and how they relate to each other, how the static variables work versus instance variable or individual class variables work. And if you need more details on any of this stuff, please just take a look at the AP syllabus. But again, extend that to say this is both in Java and Python. We do go a little bit beyond the AP syllabus because we are trying to challenge all of us and to learn new techniques. We will talk about linked lists and hash maps as well. These are some of the more advanced data structures which some of the AP classes don't cover. You will need to know about queues, stacks. So this is both first in, first out, and first in, last out, last in, first out type of data structures. You will need to know how trees work and binary search trees work, right, which are used for different types of search and sort type algorithms. And that's number 4 that's listed there as well. So you'll need to understand, for example, how linear search works and binary search works, hash table search works. You'll need to know about some sorting algorithms, what their complexities are, right? So that's number 5, right? So be able to take a code snippet and say, hey, this is order n or order n squared or whatever, right? So whatever is the complexity of the algorithms. So these are some of the areas where we are going a little bit beyond just the AP computer science syllabus. And beyond that, just a general knowledge of the computing all around us is helpful, right? So what are the operating systems that we are dealing with in today's world, right? What are some of the networking technologies? How do machines talk to each other? What are some of the databases? We're not going to go deep into any one of those things in the contest, but a general knowledge in all of those is important as we grow. And so we will be quizzing on that as part of the contest. The syllabus is the same for regionals and finals. So as you prepare for regionals, that will help you prepare for the finals as well. Okay, and obviously it will help you prepare for the AP computer science, since we are kind of extending that a bit. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the questions panel, but let's keep going here. So there are some contest rules that you need to be aware of. As you are working on the different problems, you're welcome to use blank paper to basically do any scratch work. Now that said, you cannot use any electronic resources or other book type resources, right? So you will not be able to use the computer while you are doing this contest at the regional on-site locations. This is completely physical. There may be some locations that do offer some, oh, you cannot, somebody's saying cannot see the slides. Did something change? I can see the slides. So you probably, Akshay, it's probably an issue on your side.
Oh.
There's some locations that may offer an online version of the test, but almost every location we're offering is on-site and physical, so you can use paper pencil, but no computing type of a device. Okay, next. All right, so putting ourselves in your shoes, how do you prepare for these tests? I mean, you already have a good start by joining this session, and you'll be hearing from our pros here. This lists some of the key resources you can go look at. AP computer science books and websites are really helpful, right? I mean, they cover majority of the syllabus that we talked about, and now which particular book you pick is really up to you. There are multiple offerings here. I mean, I listed a few: Princeton Review, Barron's College Board, and I'm sure there are more. But feel free to pick up, go to any of these sites and use them to prepare. There are other online resources like Khan Academy, YouTube videos that you can go look at. Pick a Java or Python book, whichever is your preference, and study it, right? Study it deeply and practice, right? So you gotta go and actually do some problems, right? Just reading is not going to be good enough. Get familiar with how coding works and debug any issues that you run into. You learn a lot by coding up a small project and debugging it to get it working. Okay, and take online courses. We put that in red. We don't have any prep clubs planned for computer science this year yet. We're still looking into it. But meanwhile, you're welcome to use any of the other resources that are listed in blue. Okay, let's move on, please. Sample questions are on the website. Again, it's on northsouth.org. You go there on the regional contest section and that opens up these tabs. There are about 10 questions that are posted there. All of the questions are multiple choice and they're representative of what you would see in a real contest as well. So this gets you kind of a taste of what's to come by trying those questions out. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so how do you actually participate? Well, like I said, the contests are physical on site this year. And it's happening all over the country. And depending on what location you are in, it's going to be on a slightly different date, which is chosen by your local chapter, right? So the dates could be either April 1st or 2nd. If your local chapter has picked the first weekend for the contest, it could be April 22nd or 23rd, or May 11th or 12th, right? So depending on which chapter you're in physically, you'll pick one of those 6 dates based on the chapter selection. The timing of the contest will be listed on the chapter's website as well as you register, so you'll know exactly when and where the contest will be held. To register, you would go to northsouth.org, log in as a parent or a student and register using normal northsouth.org website tools. Registration is required 2 weeks before the actual contest, so make sure you're not leaving it to the last minute because you won't be able to register. There is no late registration, so please register early. There is currently an early registration discount that's happening as well, so avail that, right? So use that to get a little bit of a discount on your registration. Okay, next. All right, Satvik, you're up.
Okay, perfect. Can we go to the next slide?
Yeah.
So, before I get started, here's just a little, about me. As I said before, right, I'm a current freshman at UC Berkeley studying electrical engineering and computer science. A lot of, what you learn is based on, what courses you take during high school. So what I found is that, the AP Computer Science A and Principles, both of those provide a really solid foundation. And most schools do offer these courses. And then also in computer science really goes hand in hand with math. So, when preparing for computer science, it's often useful to have, a strong math background. So, that would be, if your school has any, math courses, calculus, all of those really useful, especially, when you go to college and if you want to do computer science. Aside from, courses you take at school, there are a lot of online courses that you can take on computer science. Here are just some of the ones that I've taken on like algorithms and AI, but there are courses online for all sorts of things like web design, UI design, all that stuff, and you can find them on places like edX or Coursera. Some of the programming languages that I know are, Java, Python. Those are pretty common ones. Python is a really common language if you want to start out, and there's some other languages. Some of the awards. So in 2021, the first, iteration of Computer Science B, I got first place. And for some of you who are more familiar with competitive programming, I am a gold qualifier in the USA Computing Olympiad. And then just some, other computer science related things. There are certain places where they, provide camps for computer science. During the summer, if you don't have any plans and you just want to, expand your computer science knowledge, some camps, they provide a lot of really good resources and, mentors that you can certainly take advantage of. And then, for those of you who already have a pretty solid computer science, foundation, um, and do your own projects, something else that, might be a little different is maybe interning at a company. So in my, the summer before my senior year, I interned at a startup called Accelerate, and essentially what they did was process automation. So for example, right, um, a lot of people in offices, they like document things on like Excel sheets, and using machine learning, you can essentially automate these tasks. And so I think definitely um, having this kind of experience of like working in a team um, definitely is useful compared to just working on projects on your own. Go to the next slide. So, oh, I think we went one slide too much. Yeah, okay, perfect. So yeah, so I'm just going to be talking a little about comparative programming. And so, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's basically a sort of sport in a way where they give you a certain problem, and you have to code a solution that provides like a kind of generalized way of solving these problems. And they'll give you certain constraints like how fast your program has to be, the runtime, how much memory your program takes up, um, and input and output, right? So they give you an input and you have to give out a certain output. And usually there's no constraints on your programming language. Although most people, right, they prefer to use either Python, Java, or C++. Those are usually three most common languages. And so, just here's an example, right, of a really simple problem you'd get. Essentially, let's say they give you two numbers, A and B, right? And they want you to return their sum. And so for those of you who are familiar, right, with programming, you can take these two numbers, store them in variables, and just add those two variables together. But now, right here come the constraints. What if they give you numbers that are very large, right? Numbers that you can't possibly store on your computer, right? In that case, what would you do? Well, like for example, let's say your number has, I don't know, let's say your number has 10,000 digits, right? You that number would be very large, and you probably wouldn't be able to store it by itself. And so one thing you can do, right, is if you think back to how we normally add numbers, you can go digit by digit, right, and just add those two together, and then take that remainder and carry over that digit. And just by doing that, now you don't actually have to store the numbers, right? You can just look at each digit by digit and manually just add them up. Next slide. So here just some resources. For Java, I personally think AP Computer Science A or any similar course will give you a solid foundation on Java. And for Python, you can honestly, if you go on Google, right, there are so many resources. Personally, I like Harvard's CS50 course. Um, and some other resources, some of them that I said before, Coursera and edX, they have very nice resources. CodingBat is a website where if you're just getting started in Java or Python, there are a lot of good exercises, right? And then some of these other websites, Code Academy, Usico Guide, HackerRank, LeetCode, all of those are just places where you can find, just more practice um, to kind of just like get your skills better, right? And so you can go on to the next slide. So again, some more things, right? Is some of you might have heard of this thing called Medium, where essentially, it's where people can write their own sort of like articles on whatever topics, right, on computer science they want. That's usually a really good resource if you're getting into computer science, and it's a vast world. There are many different fields in computer science. So if you just want to learn, right, about um, what there is to offer, Medium has a lot of good articles. Um, and then obviously at your school, right, you can take courses. I'm sure that many of your schools will have clubs for computer science. Um, and those are definitely good resources because, in my opinion, right, working with other people is, first of all, it's much more enjoyable, but it also, it benefits everyone to, work together with peers. And then specifically competitive programming, here are just some like places where you can find competitive programming competitions. USACO, that's a really common one. Code Forces, it's a website where people, host a lot of their own competitions. And then companies like Google, Facebook, and Lockheed Martin all host their own annual competitive programming competitions, which, anyone can be free to register for. And then just some other things. Hackathons. Hackathons are really popular. Um, while comparative programming a lot of times just focuses on mostly algorithms, hackathons are also a really nice resource, especially for people who, are more creative. Hackathons, the way they work is you're essentially given just like an open-ended topic, essentially, and you and your team have to essentially come up with a full product. So it's definitely a more, it's a more thorough process. And a lot of the times you'll end up with actual, viable product ideas that you can even expand on later and, just keep as a showcase of your skills. And again, right, projects. That's like, in my opinion, that's the main way to just improve your programming knowledge. I think what a lot of people eventually realize is that, ironically enough, when you're coding, like almost half the time that you program is just spent, debugging your code. And honestly, the way to just get better at it is just by writing more code, right? Because if you, spot some errors and it takes you, let's say it takes you an hour to find those errors and correct them, well, next time you encounter that error, most likely it will take you less time because, you've already encountered it, and you'll be able to deal with it better. And so in general, right, if you're looking at these NSF computer science contests, a lot of the problems, have to deal with snippets of code, right? Tracing them, debugging them, writing your own code snippets. And so what you'll realize is that you don't necessarily have to treat, studying for this contest like studying for a test. Rather, if you just go and, take a language, right, Java or Python, and if you learn the language and learn how to just use it, right, to code your own things, that itself is that knowledge that will then transfer to doing well in the contest, because the skills of you writing your own code and looking at your own code, that are those are those same skills that will let you do well in these contests.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Satvik. And before we go, there were some complaints about they're not able to see the screens. And I hope everybody else do not have this problem, only a few of you. But don't despair, because we are going to send you a link to this presentation tomorrow with our follow-up email with a link for the presentation too, for the webinar too. So just follow along with what our pros are talking about. Okay, so next we will invite Chinmay Govind to make his presentation.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Chinmay, and yeah, I'm a junior at Cumberland Valley High School in Pennsylvania, and I've taken a few AP courses my high school career. I've still got a year or two left with some calculus and some comp sci. Like you said, the math is very important in programming. I got a perfect score in the PSAT, which now I can brag about it to a national stage. So that's my only chance to do that. And I spent a lot of my time in Science Olympiad, where we do different science events, which there's an event there called cybersecurity, which is relevant to comp sci. So I spent some time studying for that. I only know maybe 5% of the stuff that topic does, but I still know like my Java, my Python, the SQL. I can do some C++. I learned PHP for fun a while ago. And I got third place at this current year's CSB, or the last year's CSB. And I was the state champion at CSA's Cybersecurity B. And if you are looking in a career in computer science, I want to advertise cybersecurity because it's really, really fun. Like the CSA competitions, they gave you 48 hours. They had like a website, and you would sit in this room, bring your laptops and everything, and they'd give you 48 hours to try to hack the website as much as you can. So we were there for like 20 hours straight, finding exploits that we could do with this website. So if you're considering a career in computer science and you want to be like those hackers in the movies, cybersecurity is a really cool option. Yeah, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So for this session, at school, a lot of my friends will just ask me for like general tips whenever we have a comp sci test or something, and I always tell them a lot of the same things. So in this session, I'm going to try to just say random tips that I always tell my friends for doing good on these kinds of tests or problems. Can I have the next? Thank you. The number one resource I tell people is this website called Project Euler, and I bet these are the two. I've heard of it, but I really like this website. It's got hundreds of problems, and they're not specifically any language problems. They'll give you like a math kind of question, and you have to use a program to solve it. And these problems are way, way harder than anything you'll see on AP Computer Science or NSFB. So if you can do these kinds of problems, then every other kind of problem would be easy. And these problems get you practice in writing code instead of just reading and understanding code. And if you know how to write, then you know how to read. So that's why I think this resource is my favorite resource for learning how to do the tests. And I did these problems in both Python and Java, so I could become familiar with both. And I know that the competition says that you only need to know one, but if you know both, then if they use, say, like a command that you don't know in Java or just forget, you can look at the Python one and see, oh, okay, that's what that command is. Or vice versa. You can see it just helps to know both in a question. So yeah, projecteuler.net, great website. For solving code problems, I don't know how familiar, like how much of these kinds of comp sci tests you guys have done, but the one really important skill is that you need to know how to basically run code mentally. And if you're like trying to learn and develop this skill, one thing that they don't usually show you in a comp sci class is that a lot of IDEs will have a debug feature. So if you're typing in some code, you can use the debug feature and you can step through your code line by line. I remember when I think one of my older friends showed me this, I really loved it because I could see how the computer was running my code at each step, and I'd never been able to have the computer do that for me before. So I thought it was really fascinating, and you guys can play around with using your IDE. I know IntelliJ has a nice debug features, and you can see with these different kinds of problems how code will flow. And that's where the pen and paper that NSF gives you is really important, because you will need to keep track of different variables and different loop states when you're doing these problems. So if you know how a computer will do it, then you can replicate that by hand. And that's an important skill in these problems. So as you're doing a lot of these practice questions, being able to stimulate the control flow of a program is an important skill. Yep. And as a next, yep. So again, pen and paper is very important. If you're using this B as like to help you with the AP Comp Sci exam, I know that one, they have you write all the free response questions. So you have to handwrite code. And I think on the IB exam, they'll probably have you handwrite code as well. And I think at software job interviews too, they'll have you handwrite code. Is that what they have you do at Google, Sanjeev? Do it so? Yeah. So knowing how to do code without the help of an editor is very important. I remember the first time I like tried a problem while handwriting code, I realized how dependent I was on the IDE's nice features. Like they'll remind you if you're missing a semicolon or something. So when you're doing these things on pen and paper, it helps you get things correct on the first try. When you're just typing into an editor, it's very easy to see, oh, I made a mistake. I need to go back and fix it. Whereas with pen and paper, there's no way to know that without just thinking through it very carefully, looking for all the edge cases. So practicing with pen and paper is a great way to make sure you're not making any silly mistakes and finding all of these edge cases in these problems. If you're looking for practice questions like this, you can Google AP Computer Science free response questions, and they have years and years of practice questions where you'll have to handwrite code to solve a certain problem. And they'll have like a scoring rubric that you can score yourself and see how well your code would have worked. So yeah, pen and paper, it's an important skill. And that's next. Thank you. So one topic that the NSFB and the AP Comp Sci B really like is sorting algorithms. And a lot of my class, at least, will just memorize the time complexities for each sorting algorithm. And I always tell them, no, don't do that. Don't do that. So if you know how all of these sorting algorithms work, then you can just figure out these from the sorting algorithm. And if you don't know what a time complexity is, these different sorting algorithms are ways to like, for a computer to sort like a list of numbers or something. And the time complexity is how long these different sorting methods take to sort your list of things. So when you're learning these sorting algorithms, try to memorize the process and understand the process. And if you know the process, it's very easy to figure out if it's like a n squared time complexity, log n time complexity. But the basic principle is don't memorize, try to understand, and you'll be a lot faster and it'll be a lot less error prone. Yeah, don't memorize. One thing that not a lot of the comp sci classes will talk about is the different exception types. But some certain questions will say like, what will happen when you run this bit of code? And it'll have like different kinds of errors, right? So if you know the different classes of errors and what causes each kind of error, you know exactly what will cause an error or what code will safely run. And if you're advanced enough, you'll know like sometimes they'll ask about inheritance type questions. And I always used to forget which kinds of overloading and stuff would cause errors. So taking some time to study what overloads and what inheritance things cause these errors is good. So try to know all, like the different exception types and what caused them. One of the things on the NSF syllabus that was interesting to me, they had said for general knowledge of popular OSs. And I remember the first time I was preparing for the B, I didn't know very much about the Mac or anything. So I spent a lot of time like learning all these things. And then they don't ask too much about it. So my advice to you when you're studying for it is know the common tools on the 3 main OSs. Know like some basic shell commands and know like how to use their file explorer and everything. And that's just useful to know in general if you're ever like helping your friends or helping someone with a computer problem. Knowing these basic knowledge of these computers is just good to have in life. NSF also likes to ask about DRAM versus SRAM, dynamic RAM versus static RAM, and they really like to ask like which ones will keep their memory when you turn the power off. I don't know. They just really like to ask that. So make sure you know the difference between those two in your studies. And for networking, all they really like to ask is IPv4 versus IPv6, which is, for those who don't know, that's like 2 different ways that computers have IP addresses. It's like the identifier that identifies a computer on the internet. So look into IPv4 and IPv6 for the exam. Know the difference between those two, know the limitations of those two, and know the sizes and everything. So become comfortable with those 2 different things. Yeah. I have the next. Thank you. So some of these questions will work with binary and binary operations. And just being good at converting to binary is a useful skill. When I was like, a couple years ago, I wanted to get really good at binary. So whenever I was at school, I would ask my friends, give me a number, and then I would convert it to binary. And I still do this now with like square roots and logs and stuff, just to practice my mental math. But it's a good tool to like get quick with it. And it helps a lot in tests because you can just do it instantly. Like it's an instant mental process. And that helps you get through the test faster. So you have more time to check your work and everything. I remember, because I don't do too much work with these binary operators in normal coding, like you don't really do too much with XOR in any normal programming circumstance unless you're dealing with very low level things. You need to make sure you know your operations and like which characters do which operation, because I forgot which one was which when I first did the comp sci exam and I had to guess which one was which. So just memorize which is the AND, which is the XOR, which is the OR, and you'll be good for binary operations. But practicing with binary is an important skill.
Yeah, just a quick
Next, the next.
to extend that,
Yeah.
just a little bit, to include octals and hex as well. Especially like
Yeah.
for example, if you want to go from a hex number to a binary number or a hex number to a decimal number, right? How would you do that? I think it would be good skill to practice. Given that all our computers are based on zeros and ones internally, right? This is kind of the foundation of how almost everything on the computers get represented. So it's good advice to become comfortable with binary operations and how they extend to the other bases.
Yep. Being able to convert from decimal to these bases and then back to decimal is also good skill. Cool. And about speed, the really best way to get really fast at something is to practice a lot. Like if you imagine your first day at your school, you like have to find all your classes at first and it takes you a long time to get from class to class. But now, after maybe years of going there, you can get to your classes instantly. That's the same way with these competitive programming things. When you first like try a new type of problem, it might take you a long time to figure out the solution. But then once you've seen that question like dozens of times in practice, when you see that kind of question on the test, you can do it, in less than a second. So lots and lots of these questions helps. And being able to like read these questions quickly and understand what they want quickly is very helpful, because a lot of times what gets people on tests is not that they don't know how to solve the question, but they just don't understand the question. So again, doing lots and lots of these questions will help you see what they usually like to ask and how to approach that kind of problem. Just lots of practice is the best way. Yep, that's good there. Kind of the last one. Thank you. So the number one thing that I always tell my friends is that if you're studying something, like studying for math or studying for comp sci, you should study like because you actually like the subject, not for the grades or not to win or anything. And I know like that's a lot of times you want to study something so you can, go to a top college and get a good paying job, and that's respectable. But if you have a passion for the subject that you're learning, then it'll become 10 times easier if you actually want to understand it rather than just memorizing formulas or methods and things. So having a genuine passion for computer science is the number one driver for getting really good. And I bet that Satvik and Sanjeev both love what they do with computer science. And that's what, some days. And that's how they've got to where they are. So I wanted to put a 3 Idiots quote here because it's my favorite movie. Don't chase success, chase excellence, and success will follow. So don't focus on beating others. Just focus on becoming the best programmer and coder that you yourself can be. And if you do that, then you'll get the first place automatically. Yeah. That's all I've got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chinmay. Thank you, Satvik. I know you guys have put in so much of effort in bringing these presentations, and thank you for that. I'm sure your younger peers will appreciate it really well. For all of you, we will be sending you the presentation tomorrow by email as a follow-up for this webinar, so you could look at it again and then go through the details. So now, now that they have spoken, whatever questions you have, they are here to answer you. Sanjeev, do you see anything, or can you post one to them?
Yeah, I already responded to the questions that are posted, but again, request to our audience here, please ask questions. We're here to help you with anything that you have, whether it is general North-South related or any computer science thing related. Chinmay and Satvik here shared great advice on how to prepare. If you have questions for them, now's a good time to ask.
Please type out your questions, and then we'll post it to the panelists on your behalf. Someone is saying that thank you, Chinmay and Satvik, for excellent presentation, and I can agree more with him. You can start with your any generic questions or anything, Sanjeev. You can post it to these two people.
I guess one maybe comment I would make is I'm available to you for any questions you have offline as well. I'll put in my email address in the chat, so feel free to copy that over locally and reach out to me in case you would like to talk about anything. There are a few more questions coming in. Let's see. Daisy, would you like to read them?
Yeah, I can start. The one it says how many. Let me see. Just please keep. How and why you choose the US Berkeley over the other colleges? Satvik?
Okay, so yeah, so the reason why I chose Berkeley was, I mean, out of all the colleges, right, that I got into, Berkeley was essentially like the best one for computer science, and also, I mean, it's in California, the Bay Area, which I mean, there's a lot of CS opportunities, so I think it was kind of a no-brainer for me to pick Berkeley.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good place to be. The next one is asked is let me see. Which AP CS course test has a written code questions? These are all AP have a written course or?
Okay, so I believe there's 2 AP computer science courses, right? There's
Yeah,
computer science principles, computer
right.
science A. I haven't taken principles, but from my understanding, it's like more general computer science related things. Satvik, do you?
So I've taken both. And so yeah, AP Computer Science A, right, deals specifically with Java, and the free response section does have you writing code. On the other hand, principles, the exam is actually all multiple choice, and there's a component of the exam where you have to create your own project. That's done offline, like that's done before the actual AP exam, and that one you can do in whichever language you want. And the way, just a little bit more detail about that, is you actually, that project is focused more on, design, right? And it's focused more on the process of creating an application. And at the end, you also submit a video of how it works. So I think definitely like the written code part is only in AP Computer Science A.
Thank you. When can I get started with machine learning? Is there a starting point?
Yeah, so I think definitely for machine learning, what I would suggest is Harvard's that CS50 AI course, as well as I think on edX and Coursera, they have lots of very good courses for machine learning. And then, of course, as I said, Medium, I know has a lot of good articles on AI, and just like tiny, code snippets, right? So if you want to know how to do like a one thing, um, there will probably be an article for it.
Thank you. And maybe this is for Sanjeev. Do we have enough of course that preps you for the contest?
Yeah, good question. In the past years, we have had one, and in fact, we've had courses running in parallel, offering the learning in Java and Python, right, to 2 different set of students. This year, we do not, right? So we were a little bit short on resources this year, so we're not offering that this year. So we are pointing you guys to other online resources that are available.
Okay. The question is, my son is in middle school. When is the best way to start introducing computer science to my son? Any of you guys or all of you?
I guess I'll go. Yeah, so honestly, with computer science, I think it's never too early to introduce to computer science. I think if they're in middle school, definitely like getting started with Python. Python is like, it's a very simple language. I think that, if you start in middle school, you definitely have a lot of time to, um, learn. You can really just go at your own pace. So yeah, it's never too early. Even elementary school, right? There are resources like, I know Scratch, that's a really common resource. It's a really good way, yeah. And also code.org. Scratch and code.org are very good for like younger students. But then obviously if you're like, once you get into like middle school, I think you can definitely start with like Python.
Chinmay?
Yeah, so I know NSF used to offer the intro to Python class, and I think there we taught middle schoolers. I was involved with that for last summer session, and then Sanjeev, I don't know if are they still running that one? Intro to Python.
I have not heard. No, I don't think they are. I think this year we are short on resources. This year we're taking a pause on that one. Now, if you're able to pull out, get the resources and restart that even this year, then we will certainly make everybody aware of that through an email note.
But there's definitely other online resources that can help like kids of that age learn Python. So I know I first learned using Khan Academy to learn basic coding. But yeah, if you want to look online, you can definitely start him with Python. Any middle school student with Python.
Great.
Yeah, I can share just a little bit about how I got started into computer science when I was a kid. So
that's going to be my next question. When did you really get started with computer science? All 3 of you, but Sanjay, you can start.
Yeah, I mean, I was in, it turned out I was actually in high school, not middle school at the time, but there were no computers at home. So I happened to be in the school library, and they had one computer for the entire school. And it was an Apple Mac computer. And basically, it had a console screen up, and ended up typing, print hello world in BASIC. And it printed hello world. It was like, I was amazed. It was like, wow, I can make it print whatever the heck I want. That is really cool. And then of course I created a loop to print hello world bazillion times, and that was really cool. I can make it do repeat things. Anyhow, just starting with something small that the student finds interesting is a good way to go. I think Chinmay talked about having a passion for the subject, not just learning for the sake of doing good in classes or whatever, actually enjoying the subject and be amazed by the capabilities that this field offers can really help build the interest, and the interest then spawns excellence. So, Satvik or Chinmay, would you like to add about your experience with how you got started?
I can go. So I had a similar experience. When I was maybe like 8, my mom put me on Khan Academy's little processing JavaScript thing. And there you would like make little shapes and you could move them around. And I thought that was really fun because I like making the little shapes. I made little people. I made them move around and stuff. And that's kind of how I got started, just making those little animations. And then from there, I started liking the math, and then my math and computer science love kind of came together, and I started doing like these computer science problems.
So for me, as I said before, right? So actually in elementary school, my school, they decided to enroll us all in code.org, Hour of Code challenge. And so there you had to code a simplified version of the game Plants vs. Zombies, for those of you who know. And so yeah, I completed that Hour of Code challenge, and I really liked it. And so from there, in middle school, my parents introduced me to Java. I just, they gave me a book. I just, I went through that book my own pace. And then I think definitely one of my like biggest moments, like aha moments, was uh when I was learning Java and I decided to, code my own game. And uh it's the game was Mastermind. It's a very common like beginner project, but I remember how I think it took me like 3, 4 days, to code it up. Something that now would take me like an hour or two. But I think at that time, I was really proud of my work. And I definitely think like just taking those little steps of like, learning a little bit and then applying it, to make your own project, and then just like constantly expanding like that, it's kind of like a way of like rewarding yourself. And it really just encourages you to keep learning.
So, yeah. So you have to start somewhere, and you all started as by chance, right? Not like you were all gifted programmers to start with or anything.
Yeah, and start small.
Yeah. The next question I have is, what other courses in high school help students interested in computer science major other than AP computer science? Is there anything else
Yeah.
they have to?
I mean, I can give a little bit of insight into this. So as I said before, right, you can take courses online. That's always an option. Another thing is this I kind of just depends on your school. Um, but I do know, like, for example, at my high school, they offered other computer science courses. Um, for example, they offered courses on like cybersecurity, machine learning, um, a variety of those things. Um, Another thing that I would say, right, is um, something that really ties into computer science is robotics, right? And so if you kind of have that like kind of like engineering, if you're also kind of into that, I definitely think robotics is a great way to kind of combine like an interest like engineering along with like computer science, because at the end of the day, right, you can build your robot, but to make it do things, all of that is, computer science, it's code.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm gonna add a little bit to that. Like we all said, math is very important. So like taking these calculus classes and stuff, that's a good skill to have. And like Satvik was saying, with robotics, there's definitely outside of high school courses that you can do to get involved in robotics. There's an organization called FIRST that runs like FLL and FTC and FRC even, which is a really popular robotics organization. So you could look into joining your local team. I know the reason I learned Java was to do the coding for our FTC team's robot, and that's how I learned Java, and it was really nice, and I enjoyed it. As for courses too, I'm taking an engineering course this year so that next year I can take a digital electronics course, and there you can learn like how to make the circuits that do these kinds of like binary operations. And so when you have a physical circuit, you can like actually see what all these binary operations mean and stuff. I think that's a really cool way to get more into computer science.
Thank you, Chinmay. The next is all important question. How do you practice for a competitive program when you have limited time to show off?
Yeah, so competitive programming, I definitely think it comes down to just doing a lot of problems. And so again, for those, you have resources like USACO, Code Forces, all of this that I had on that slide. Because obviously, right, let's say you learn a new like algorithm, right? What it definitely comes down to is one, right, speed. That's a big thing in competitive programming. And also another thing is applying, the algorithm in different ways. Right? And all of that comes with experience, comes with just doing problems, right? And so that's, I would say, is like the best way to practice for competitive programming.
Anything, Sanjeev, to add?
No, I think you covered it well, Satvik. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. The next one asks, what websites do you recommend to learn Python and Java? I thought you covered it already, but yeah.
Just one thing I would add is, we stressed practice a lot, right? Picking up your own projects and practice. So the number one tool that I would recommend to learn Python and Java is your own little IDE, an integrated development environment. You just have on your machine and just pick up a project of your own and code it up, right? So Satvik talked about writing a game, talked about moving things around, and I talked about doing hello world type things. Just do some programming of your own, whatever you find interesting. That's the number one, and you can do that on a website as well, right? So there is replit.com. You can code online if you don't want to have a IDE install, so that's a good website. And you can save your code on GitHub, right? So you can build your basically repository of functions that you're writing that you can even reuse across projects. Satvik, Chinmay?
Yeah, so I think really when it comes to it, what I've seen is that there are, if you literally like just go to Google, right, and search, Python tutorial, right? Most of what you see will have like pretty much the same content, right? I mean, there's only so much, right? You can like all the content will mostly be the same. I think it definitely comes down to just picking any one of those, right? I don't know, like edX, Coursera, websites like W3 Schools, just some of common ones. But I think definitely it doesn't matter where you take the course. The main thing is like taking it, getting that basic understanding, and then again, as Sanjeev said, just coding projects, right? Because that's really the best way to kind of just learn, is by just coding yourself.
And I know the way I learned Java is my dad took me to this ancient place called a library, and we got a Java for Dummies book. I think my dad picked it for Dummies because like it's me, and that's how I learned my Java, just And I prefer a book over like the videos and stuff because I just don't like sitting through videos. I'm impatient. So with the book, you can go at your own pace. And I know the Java for Dummies book had like practice projects or stuff you would make along with the book, and you could follow along with it. So you could learn the things while actually doing it. So if you want an alternative to like a website or stuff, libraries will definitely have books, good books like that.
Thank you. And what are some of the computer science exams I can take and show it to the colleges, probably to improve your application? You talked about TSA already, but
I haven't done too much yet, so Patrick would probably know more here. AP exams, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like colleges, right? I think definitely, working on personal projects, those are definitely worth mentioning, along with, competitions. Um, I think like with colleges, honestly, a big thing is, I guess, the impact. I know a lot of people, right, um, with computer science, for example, they go to a local organization and, they help them build a website. And simple things like that, right? It doesn't have to be complex computer science, right? Um, it's more about, how you use that computer science. Um, and so yeah, you competitions, you have, your own personal projects, and then you have, uh, stuff like teaching people, right? Yeah.
Um, is AP statistics helpful for computer science field? Have you guys
I
taken
haven't
it?
taken it. A few friends who've taken it. And
Yeah. Oh,
have you taken it?
so I mean, I've taken AP statistics. What I will say in general is that programming, um, it's not really like the math required for programming is, I think, the more theoretical you get, you'll start to encounter like more complex math. For example, like statistics and probability, that's really something you'll see like um you won't really see it much like in terms of like the stuff you'll see on like NSF competitions or like even like when you're coding on your own, right? Like that's not really stuff that you use. If you know someone like that works in a computer science field, they'll probably be able to tell you that you don't really like use like calculus or like probability like in your like everyday like computer science tasks. Like the coding um is really like it's not really that math heavy um once you get down to like actually coding. So yeah, AP statistics, it's not really like a necessity for programming.
I hear that data science, though, is a hot topic right now. So if you're looking to go into data science, statistics that there would definitely help. And there, the computer science is more augments the statistics and stuff, and you use the computers to like process that data and do statistics on it. So if you want to go into data science, definitely AP stats will be helpful. If you're thinking more like on a topic saying electronics engineering, right? I might do cybersecurity. Their stats might not be as useful. So it depends on what you want to do.
Thank you. And Satvik, can you share some of your experience in USACO on your journey from brown to gold?
Yeah, so I think I initially was introduced to competitive programming in my freshman year of high school. I joined the competitive programming club at my school. And so I think so Yusuko, each level kind of like has its own hurdles, right? So bronze is where you're really just trying to get your grasp of your language, whether it is Java or Python or C++. Personally, strictly from like a competitive programming aspect, I honestly would not encourage Python for this, just for the sole reason that it's generally slower. But I think that Python is definitely like a necessary language to know in computer science in general. And then, after bronze, you have silver, where now rather than focusing on your just general grasp of your knowledge, they start to touch on basic algorithms and such. And so I think with that, I really like one of the best resources for competitive programming is Usico Guide. It's a good website that really goes through every single topic that you'll need, along with a bunch of practice questions. And then Gold kind of like goes into, more just more complex algorithms. What I would say is that definitely with Usico, it just comes down to doing a bunch of practice problems. I know that like when I was preparing, I would do like all the contests from like the past like 3-4 years. And what I'd also say is preparing for Usico, like for example, right, algorithms that you'll learn when preparing for silver or gold or platinum. All of those, if you're intent on pursuing like a career in like computer science, like software engineering, it's really useful. Like for example, even some of like the toughest classes in college, use like they teach the same algorithms that you learn in competitive programming, and so it's definitely really useful.
Thank you. And is engineering design good to know for computer science?
I can take a cut at that. It really depends on the syllabus of the engineering design course, right? If it is related to computing and how do you do some design with actual programming, then I think it would help you build your computer science skills. But if it is using some of the GUI tools to do some, for example, mechanical designs, then it is less valuable. Right? So I would say check the syllabus of the specific engineering design course that you're looking at, and that will guide you on whether that's helpful or not. I'll add one more thing, which is all of these courses and all of these topics, they do help build analytical skills and logical thinking skills. So even though they may not be directly helpful to computer science, those broader skills will help with computer science as well. Right? So they're complementary, right? Our work in computer science will help on the other fields, and your work on the other STEM fields will help with computer science. So I would say indirectly, yes, but if you want to know more specifically, you will need to look at the syllabus of the course.
Okay. Thank you. Finally, on a lighter vein, other than coding, what are your sports or other extracurricular interests? Sarpik and Chenmay.
So I think I mentioned earlier, I spend a lot of time with Science Olympiad. I usually stay after school like 2-3 hours every day, just working with my teammates there. And I could spend my time doing a more computer science related thing, but I just have a lot of friends there and I enjoy doing it and I get a lot of medals out of it. So Science Olympiad is really fun for me. Yeah, that's what I usually do.
So for me in high school, I think my time was actually largely dedicated to the math competition team at my school. I think one part of that I really enjoyed was the system we had where, you'd kind of teach the younger grades. So I would teach like the middle schoolers at our school and help them prepare for competitions like, math counts and like AMC. That was something that I really enjoyed. And just like other things in like my free time. I enjoy playing the drums. That's something that, I really enjoy. So definitely like I think even with computer science, like you definitely have time to like do other things that you enjoy. And that should be a big thing, right? I feel like I mean, if you really do enjoy computer science, you can just solely do computer science. But I honestly think it's better to just like, be kind of diverse, have fun with it. Because I mean, having fun is really like the best way to like learn computer science.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for your time, effort, patience in answering all the questions and educating the younger kids. You've done an outstanding job, in my opinion. And not only that, you also continue to give back your to North-South Foundation from what you got out of it in your days of a competing contest. We really appreciate your help in making this happen and encouraging your younger peers to participate. I want to thank Dr. Sanjeev Trikatu for being here, answering your questions, and really putting things together and making this happen here. And it's really, we are moving forward with our contest and with the timing. For all those who attended the webinar, thank you very much for attending, and I hope you learned a lot from this. But we will also send you a recorded link of the webinar as well as the presentation by tomorrow or a day after. Before you leave, please fill in the feedback form and help us out. And we are going to have another session of Meet the Pro session with the vocabulary pros on February 5th, 2 weeks from today. And please look for our announcement, register and attend, and that will also be a great session. And finally, I would like to ask Sanjay, any final thoughts of today?
Again, thank you everybody for joining. There's one other thank you I need to give and want to give. Thank you, Daisy, for organizing the session today. It was obviously without your help, we could not share this passion and this information with our broader audience. And thank you again to the audience for joining us. Thanks, Satvik and Chinmay. Really good to have you here to share your experiences and insights into how to do great in this topic.
Thank you. Yeah, you really created some interest in people. So Satvik, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for this opportunity to just share my experience. Yeah.
Thank you, Chinmay.
Yeah, thank you for letting me be on this. I've never been on a panel before, so this is cool. It's a cool new experience. Thank you to the audience for listening to all that. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you, guys. Yeah, thanks for all the help. Please stay safe and healthy and enjoy the weather, and we will see you next time in the next webinar. And we will post this presentation as is in the Google give them the link, and then we will go from there. Thank you, Sanjeev. Hopefully this session hits off the whole contest, interest, spurs the interest. Thanks, Sanjeev and Chinmay, and then I'll be in touch for the next probably sessions with you.
All right, see you folks at the contest. Take care.
Yeah, sure. Bye.